last thing I want to talk about today, and that is the ongoing news of the problems over our good friends Square Enix Japan and the Final Fantasy VII Remake is or isn't happening.
Should I just chill out? I'm just going to chill out because this is going to be a minute from Rich Alvarez. All right, let him have it, Richie. Let's go.
I'm so glad that you've decided to watch Video Game Talk. And if you're not familiar with me, then you wouldn't know that I've been a longtime fan of Square Enix. I grew up with the original Final Fantasy games on Nintendo, as well as Chrono Trigger, which is still, I consider Chrono Trigger my favorite game of all time. So I love classic Square. However, it is no secret to anyone that perhaps Square has not been on top of things for the last 15 or so years. I think the first time that I started to sense a disturbance at Square Enix was Final Fantasy X-2. And actually, I think
that was a while ago.
That was
Richie.
a while ago, and I think that was one of the first games that they had under the then new Square Enix brand, because before that it was previously Square Interactive Entertainment or simply SquareSoft. And then it became Square Enix when they merged with Enix, the creator of the Dragon Quest series. So ever since Square Enix, they haven't quite been on top of things. There was also the fiasco with the original Final Fantasy movie way back in the day. I think it was released in 2001, which was directed by Hirobu Sakaguchi, the longtime director and creator of Final Fantasy, who was then fired from his job over at Square after that movie. So, bankruptcy problems, merging with Square, and firing Hirobu, all of those combined kind of started this big shift at Square. And I'm only saying all this to kind of give you a precedence for why I'm about to talk about, why I'm talking about, which is I grew up with Final Fantasy, I loved it, they had problems, it's not my favorite series anymore, Square Enix is not my favorite company anymore, and really kind of Bethesda has kind of taken that place in my heart for better or worse because of the great work they've been doing over the last 10 or so years. So anyways, that's where we're at from that background point of view. Now let's get into the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And let me just say that the game that they should have remade was Final Fantasy VI. But moving on. Final Fantasy VII, the remake was announced at E3 2015. And ever since then, people were like, when is it coming out? Obviously, people want it out ASAP. They've been doing minimal work on it. And then a couple months ago, we learned something very disturbing that was not made entirely public.
For context, not to ruin your momentum, but like, wasn't it like 2015 that we originally got like notice of the idea that like a remake is for real actually happening?
Yes,
like,
that's what I was just saying. The official announcement trailer was at E3 2015, and that was the first time it was publicly announced at all. So we got the cool E3 2015 trailer, and that's what exploded because before that they denied a remake was ever going to happen. And so now, ever since 2015, people have been win. It was kind of it was not publicly announced. Somebody from Square announced this at a MOBIUS Final Fantasy event a couple months ago, and we are starting to get more information on this now. But basically, what's been going on at Square is that a second-party development team has been working on the Final Fantasy VII Remake. See, we all thought that Development Team 1, responsible for Final Fantasy 15, Kingdom Hearts 3, we all thought that Tetsuya Nomura's group was working on the game, because Tetsuya Nomura has been and is still, on Wikipedia, the director of this game. And he wasn't, though, because for the last 2 years it was being developed by a second party who finally came out and said that they've been fired and that they're no longer working on it at all. And so, via other people from Square, we now know that Tetsuya, who was really not working on this game at all, is now finally stepping in to direct it, meaning that he has not left, but for the most part, stepped out of Kingdom Hearts 3. Now, why is this a big deal? Because a year before Final Fantasy 15 was released, Tetsuya had to step away from that to work on Kingdom Hearts 3. And even though I liked Final Fantasy 15 more than anything since 10, it had some problems, and a lot of people attributed that to the fact that the game felt a little unfinished. And I attribute that to the fact that Tetsuya left a year before the game came out.
It's almost like a major driving factor of their story organization disappeared at some point in production, and as a result, we were left a little unresolved.
That's right. So the ending, the last half of 15, and the ending especially, felt a little awkward, and I feel like that's because Tetsuya left to work on Kingdom Hearts 3. Well, now he's left Kingdom Hearts 3 to work on Final Fantasy VII. And let me just put this this way for all of you who are looking forward to this game. We're probably not seeing this game till at least 2022 at the earliest, because the work that they've been doing for the last 2 years, out the window, because they not only have gotten rid of that second party development team, but the rumor mill is that they're actually starting from scratch because they weren't happy with what that development team was doing, and so that's why Tetsuya has now had to really step in, and he is all about perfection, assuming that he actually is the one to finish this project, because he hasn't actually finished a project in a long time. He is
2022 seems like a pretty brutal setback. You really think it's going to be that long?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I'm just filled with worry. I don't, and I've said this many times. Worry. I've said this many times to you in private and in public, where I feel like Square Enix really needs to add more people to their first-party development team if they really want to get some stuff done. Because right now we are looking at like 25% of the amount of people that should be working on Kingdom Hearts 3 working on it. And that game doesn't even have an official release date. But now that Tetsuya has kind of stepped away to take command of Final Fantasy VII, that really puts Kingdom Hearts 3 in limbo, not only as a release date, but that means that Kingdom Hearts 3 could have the same problem as Final Fantasy 15, where the second half of the game and the ending feel really incomplete. And then assuming that that doesn't happen for Final Fantasy 15, it makes you wonder what kind of a development schedule we'd be looking at for Final Fantasy VII Remake now.
It does sort of like ring that bell of like, I feel like we've been here before with this exact studio under very similar circumstances, and it hasn't worked out yet. And I think that is probably the most concise way to drum up a lot of the uncertainty.
Now, it could be argued that Kingdom Hearts 3 has already kind of gone through everything except for like the last few technical phases, and that maybe Tetsuya wasn't really needed anymore anyway. However, that's what they told us with 15, and it shows that that wasn't the case. So I guess we'll see and find out. But I'm just
don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath for that 7 remake.
I'm just disappointed that this is still what's happening over at Square Enix. They really should be more professional and get their stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, for a high, you worry about, like, just their handling of such a high visibility project, certainly. And crap happens. Shit happens all the time in video game world, especially in these multi-million-dollar projects that, for genre-defining, games and franchises and all this sort of stuff. Like, stuff happens. But, to Richie's point, it's one of those things where it's like, it's starting to feel like we've been here before. We've seen how this goes. And from a creative directional standpoint, maybe it's fair that some eyebrows are being raised.
Right. And I know I'm ranting and I'm probably forgetting some information, and I apologize for that for anybody who may know the situation better than I do. But it's just that lack of organization, and they're kind of not 100% caring about the project, which is why I've really been looking towards Bethesda as my favorite development studio the last 10 years, because the Bethesda games, although, you can argue there's some bugs and glitches in them, those games,
problems for sure.
Those feel like really fantastic, complete games. And anybody who hasn't played an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout game, do yourself a revolutionary favor and get an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout game. It's just the best.
Skyrim will be available for the Switch fairly soon.
Don't forget to watch our entire Video Game Talk podcast. And as always, please subscribe to the Rich Alvarez channel and hit that little bell thing that gives you the notifications. That way you actually see these videos. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.